RX Television on RXMuscle.com. This is Ask Dave, better known as hashtag Ask Dave, brought to you by Species Nutrition. Visit speciesnutrition.com. I'm your host, Sadiq Faruqi. This is your weekly 30-minute question and answer show with Dave Palumbo. All your questions on diet, training, supplementation, IFBB pros, competitions, all the latest controversies swirling around the bodybuilding world, life, and more. As we now bring in Dave Palumbo from our Cape Coral, Florida studios. Dave, you had the rare opportunity to have the first sit-down interview with Rich Piana after his all the scandals that have been going on in the last 2 weeks for obvious reasons. Tell our audience a little bit more about how this interview materialized. The interview is available, by the way, on RXMuscle.com.
Yeah, I mean, as people knew, last week the Rich Piana racist tape was released on YouTube by Mac Truck. And, you know, I had Lee Priest chime in on it, Greg Valentino chimed in on it, John Romano chimed on it, Chris Aceto and myself chimed in on it. And then at the end of the week, we had an iron debate where I brought Gerald Williams, who was an IFBB pro, just won his the Cal Pro out there. A good friend of mine. He's also a black man, and he gave his opinion, a very learned opinion, because he's a very educated guy. And we debated, you know, whether Rich was a racist, what should be done about it. And, you know, a lot of people out there responded to me favorably, that they really liked the episode, that they thought it was excellent. And to be honest with you, you know, the people who didn't like it, I just said, look, don't watch it if you don't want it. If you're sick of hearing about it, don't watch it. I felt it was a very important topic. I reached out to Rich this past weekend because I had reached out to him for a comment last week, and he didn't get back to me. I didn't know he was on vacation. So he reached it back out to me, and I asked him, I said, hey, Rich, you know, I think it would be great if you only live an hour or two away. Come down to the studio, let's sit down and let's find out what happened. Because, you know, I don't like to just report one side of the story. Obviously, someone has it in for him out there. Whether he is a racist or not remains to be seen. So I invited him to come to the studio. He came down yesterday. We recorded the interview. We put it up later that night. And I thought it was very genuine. I thought Rich was genuine. You know, I might have been snowed by him. I don't know. But it seemed to me that he was pretty forthright and honest and open about what happened. And I think that, you know, I got a lot of feedback from people, black and white people, saying that, you know, look, I think we believe Rich and we would like to forgive him and move on because we think he's good for the industry. So I hope if you haven't seen it out there, you can check it out at the RX Muscle YouTube channel or rxmuscle.com. It's a great interview. And like I said, it's very, you know, it really paints a true picture of what happened, at least from the perspective of Rich Piana. You know, I'm sure from the perspective of the girl who, you know, Amy Waz or whatever her name was, she doesn't feel that that's the case. I read in the comments on our YouTube channel that she's, you know, disputing everything he's saying, but it remains to be seen. She says there's more stuff that she has yet to release that's even worse than what she already released. So I guess we have to just sit back and see what comes out.
So the exclusive one-on-one interview, in-studio interview with Rich Piana, available right now at rxmuscle.com and the RX Muscle YouTube channel. If you want to ask a question, you could join us on the Muscle Central Forum at rxmuscle.com, on our YouTube channel. If you're watching us live, we ask that you like this video, and if you're not already subscribed, hit the subscribe button below. You're not going to miss any of our show segments, updates. Of course, Olympia Countdown is just days away. You can also join us on Instagram, official_RX Muscle. Let's go to Lift Forever 420. Our good friend Alan Marashi. Dave, Mark Lobliner has stated that it is better to save your money on whey isolate / hydrolysate and just get whey concentrate, because he claims there is minimal difference in terms of body composition results when using either one. I happen to disagree with him, as I use Isolyze for years with better results than whey concentrate. Do you agree with his statement? And if not, would you debate him on this topic?
Yeah, I mean, I would debate him in 3 seconds, because anyone who has any lactose insensitivity or intolerance or allergy will tell you that they can't use a whey concentrate because it's too high in lactose and it bothers their stomach. It gives them gas, diarrhea, bloating, and malabsorption of the protein. When you ferment a sugar like lactose in your gut, okay, you malabsorb a lot of the stuff that goes along with it. So if you're taking a whey concentrate in, the whey part of the equation gets pooped out. Think about it. When you have diarrhea, your body is not absorbing all the nutrients. It's going through your intestinal tract too quickly. So whey concentrate to me is like putting 87 octane fuel into a Ferrari. I've given this analogy before. You don't put 87 in there because we know the engine will not perform at peak performance. You put 93 or better in there, and that's going to make the engine perform better. So why would you put anything less than the best that's available into your body? Now, if you're a 10-year-old kid, probably who has good lactose digesting enzymes in his body still, you could probably get away with a whey concentrate. Probably wouldn't be the end of the world. But for adults who really don't digest lactose properly, I don't know many that do. Even the ones that say they do really don't, because if you ask them, pertinent questions like, oh, if you have a glass of milk, do you get gas? Or if you have too much cheese, most people say they do. So no one really handles lactose that very well, except for babies whose digestive tracts are really not that well developed yet, and that's why they don't have as many defenses against it. So I think the statement is not accurate. Once again, it's all dependent on what your digestive enzyme situation is in your body as far as lactose is concerned.
Let's go to Nelford76. If you're doing intermittent fasting, could you take in some BCAAs instead of a meal? I know you like for folks to eat something before they train.
Yeah, BCAAs is not a complete meal. It's not going to do anything for you right before you train. That's kind of silly. If you're doing intermittent fasting, if you take BCAAs during the fasting portion of the day, then you're not fasting. So if you are intermittent fasting, let's say you're doing only 12 hours out of the day you're eating, you might as well eat your food meals or your shakes, because the rest of the 12 hours out of the day you're not eating anything. So BCAAs are not going to hold you over. They by no means satiate your appetite or make you feel full. It's more of a I hope I don't lose muscle type of product. Once again, it's a luxury item. If you want to use it, fine, but it doesn't replace a meal.
Let's go to Rick Gangia. Dave, my question is your thoughts about running 1000 mg Test E and 600 mg EQ for 16 weeks with 300 mg Tren for 8 weeks and 25 mg Aromacin every other day.
It's pretty good. I probably would do 8 weeks of Tren and Test, and then 8 weeks or vice versa, of 8 weeks of Test and EQ. I probably wouldn't run them all overlapping each other. I don't think that's necessary, especially off season. And the Aromacin dosage sounds right.
Let's go to KCP Wilson. I'm not sure if we've gotten this question before, but nonetheless, your thoughts on blood type diets.
I think they're a little hokey. It's funny. I have an app on my phone that I downloaded. It's called the Blood Type Diet, and you can, for each blood type, whether it's A, B, AB or O, it tells you what foods you should and shouldn't be able to eat. So I wanted to just see what my blood type is B positive. So I wanted to just see, and it was saying, you don't handle stevia well, and it was like the weirdest, like how anyone could come up with these trends is just. It's kind of a little ludicrous, to be honest with you, and it really doesn't adhere to what I like to eat and what I handle well. So I didn't really. To me, it's arbitrary. It sounds gimmicky, and a lot of people like gimmicky stuff. Ooh, I'm type A. What should I eat? But who has made these rules? These are rules made by humans, who have arbitrarily come up with this stuff. So I don't really buy into the blood type diet whatsoever. To me, it's a little cheesy, to be honest with you.
D. Mortzel, Dave, how many grams of carbs per pound of body weight do you recommend in a growing phase in the off season?
I usually start guys off at about 1 gram of carbs per pound, and then I'll increase that depending on their metabolism. And now if they came to me and said, look, I have a really fast metabolism, I'd probably go 1.5 grams of carbs per pound and then see how they respond. Remember, carbs are the swing nutrient. So how much you eat is dependent upon how many you really require. Plus your energy output. Some guys are doing manual labor all day. They obviously need more carbs than the guy sitting on his butt all day on the couch watching TV, conserving energy, so to speak. So it's an arbitrary amount, and for each person it's different.
Let's go to Mr. Natty Olympia. Dave, what's a good legal fat burner that's keto safe? I'm looking to get past that last bit of fat and need a way to get through that diet plateau you get from dieting hard and just won't lose any more.
I like to, I hate, it sounds like I'm self-serving when I recommend my own supplements, but I really like Localized, and I'll tell you why. Because my Localized fat burner is a non-stimulant based fat burner, and you don't really want to raise cortisol any higher than necessary while dieting, because that obviously is a catabolic hormone. In an off-season scenario, it's not so important, but when you're trying to burn fat, okay, and you're on limited calories already, you're kind of in a catabolic state. You're overtraining a little bit because you're doing a lot of cardio. You might be taking a couple cups of coffee a day just to get through your workouts. You don't want to be throwing more stimulant-based fat burners on top of the pot, so to speak. That's just going to make the situation worse. And there's really not that many stim-free fat burners out on the market to begin with. Mine happens to be available, and it works, and it has some good technology in it, from a little bit of appetite suppression to sensitizing your body to leptins better so that you're not as hungry. Also, there's another olive oil metabolite that suppresses appetite a little bit. And then there's African mango, which is a terrific fat mobilizer, as well as green tea extract. So it's the combination of everything in there that really synergizes each other and helps burn fat without, like I said, stressing the body out.
Dreamweaver Fit, Dave, I hate your plain black shirt so much I mailed you a new one yesterday. Any experience on using a glucometer during carb up process on a peak week?
Anyone who wants to send me free soft fit black t-shirts, I will gladly accept them. Here's the problem with using a glucose monitor for blood sugar to see. If you have regular insulin output, in other words, assuming your insulin is working and you're not a diabetic, your blood sugar should always be within the same range. So just because you eat a big carb meal doesn't mean they're going to go up high through the roof. They won't, because your body will release insulin and keep your blood sugar low. That's physiologically what's supposed to happen. Now, if you bought a blood sugar monitor just to see what's going on in your body because you're on a lot of GH and you want to make sure you're not running high blood sugars throughout the day because that's bad for your health, that's a different story. That's a good use of it. But during carb up week, it's irrelevant. You're not gonna run high blood sugars on carb up week if you haven't run them all year. Now, there's a great device which I'm not ready to unveil yet that I'm working with a company on. It's like one of these. It's like the Fitbit, only it's better. It's like it's called the Helos. It's one of these watch things you wear, and it hooks up to an app on your phone, and it measures your blood pressure, it measures your heart rate, your breathing rate, your moods, your energy levels, and coming in the fall, the new app for it is going to be blood sugar. It will it does not penetrate your hand. It just sits around your wrist like a watch, and it can measure all this crazy stuff. It even does an EKG on you. You put your 2 fingers on the thing, on the metal part of the watch, and it will do an EKG on you. It's unbelievable. I can't wait to release it to everyone. When I just want to make sure everything works the way they say it works. But this device, man, for a couple $100 or whatever it is, I think it's like $300, does everything. And you could take, think about it. You're a bodybuilder, you're on a lot of GH, and you're worrying about, if your blood sugars are high, who the hell wants to stick themselves 50 times a day with a glucose meter? You could just look at your app and see what your sugar is. It's amazing. Not to mention, I can't tell you how many bodybuilders out there I tell them, you got to monitor your blood pressure because, high blood pressure is really dangerous for your kidneys. And people are just lazy. They don't want to buy a cuff. They don't want to check their blood pressure all day. Or they have a cuff. They just don't do it. You look at your app. You hit a button, and there's your blood. And it takes your blood pressure every 30 minutes. I've been wearing it. I'm charging it right now, but I've been wearing it for the last couple of days just to see how it works. And wow, what a great tool this is going to be. Pretty soon, you won't even need to go to the doctor anymore. These little watches will do everything. They'll give you a CAT scan too.
Let's go to Flexing Joe on our Facebook page. Dave, can you explain how diuretics work right before a show? If you're lean enough, wouldn't the water you lose come from your muscles, resulting in a loss of fullness?
Now, if you use the right diuretic and you don't abuse them, okay, the first water that leaves the body using a diuretic, or at least a potassium-sparing diuretic, is from under the skin. If you deplete too much subcutaneous water and you have none left, then the body's going to start ridding the water from the muscles. So the way I do it, at least, is that I don't limit sodium until the day before the show, and I don't really do any diuretics till the day before a show. So the person's only going to be on diuretics for 18 to 24 hours the most. Not enough time and not enough dosage to really cause any intramuscular water loss, the way I set it up, at least during my plan. And a lot of people always ask me, what's your plan? It's very complicated and it's person specific. So I do offer a last week of contest prep for $100 on my website if you want to check that out. Or if you have a show coming up and you want me to dial you in, That's something that I do a lot. I probably do more of those than any other thing I do, because a lot of people get down to the last bit. They're in shape, but they just don't want to screw it up the last week. They want to know how to limit water and limit sodium and carb up and use diuretics without, spilling over or going too flat. And so that's a service that I do offer. And once again, it's very hard to advise yourself if you don't have a coach during that last week prep. So if anyone is interested, you can always contact me.
Let's go back to our YouTube questions. Blizzy Nizzy, do you think it's detrimental to bodybuilding as a whole with bodybuilders denying the use of anabolics?
Look, there's a lot of people out there that are very honest, radical honesty, as I call it. Boston Lloyd, Rich Piana, and then there's people who don't talk about anything. You can ask. I'm not going to mention names, but you ask them, what did you use during your Olympia prep, and they're like, oh, I only used 1 cc of testosterone, and meanwhile, that's not the case. So I don't know if it's detrimental, but I think that I only think the people who really responsibly know how to talk about steroids should really talk about what they're taking. If you don't know anything about steroids and you just take them because you have to, and you're following a regimen that someone sent you, you probably shouldn't even talk about them, because then what's going to happen is someone's going to ask you a legitimate, delving question, and you're going to give some kind of bullshit answer, and it's going to make us as the bodybuilding world look like a bunch of ignorant people, and that's just not the case.
Let's go to Mehmet Victor Akaral. Dave, your opinion on maltodextrin as a pre-workout when on a ketogenic diet?
Well, maltodextrin is a carbohydrate, and it's essentially, it's considered a complex, but it's really a sugary carb. Any starchy or sugary carbs on a ketogenic diet will take you out of ketosis. So if you want to stay in ketosis, you cannot use carbohydrate, direct starchy, sugary carbohydrate sources, whether it be pre-workout, post-workout, intranasally, you just can't do it, okay? Otherwise, you won't be in ketosis. Now, if you want to take a pre-workout or post-workout shake and you're not worried about being in ketosis, then that's fine. But if you're on a ketogenic diet, no carbs.
Let's go to Rickard L87. Dave, is walnut and avocado oil any good for every day and on a keto diet?
I like avocado oil is great. It's a monounsaturated fat. It tastes terrible, however. If you're going to use a good, healthy monounsaturated fat, which should be predominantly where your fat sources come from, use macadamia nut oil. And I'm not just saying this because I sell macadamia nut oil. I sell macadamia nut oil because it's so good. That's why I decided to go to South Africa and find a person to make it for me. It's the highest in monounsaturated fats. It has a high smoke point. You can cook with it. It doesn't burn. It doesn't oxidize if it's exposed to light. It tastes buttery and good. So, there's no drawbacks to mac oil, and there's no other fat sources out there that are better than it. In terms of monounsaturates. You have your olive oil, which 90% of American olive oil is fake. It's soybean oil. So you don't want to use that anymore. I stopped using that, 2 years ago when I found that out. Avocado oil is good, but it doesn't taste good. And mac oil is the only other alternative, really, that's very high in monounsaturates. So that, to me, is where you should be directing your attention. Walnut oil, because it's a polyunsaturated fat mostly, it's very sensitive to heat. You cannot heat this stuff up at all. If you put a little walnut oil, on your salad or something like that, that's fine, but you cannot heat the stuff up.
Let's go to Eric Garris. Dave, how many times should one drink pH 9 alkaline water? How many bottles per day will be effective but not overkill? I'm worried about messing with blood buffering and blood pH.
Yeah, you really can't overdo it, alkaline water, because if your body doesn't need the alkalinity, it just will excrete it out your kidneys. You're not going to over-alkalinize your body. It's impossible, okay, essentially. Now, it was funny. I was talking to someone who was here in the studio with me the other day, came to get some product from me, and he said his coach had him on alkaline water a couple times a day. What did I think? I said, I think it's really good. He's like, I said, where are you getting it from? And he's like, well, I'm buying it from like Whole Foods. The guy was spending like $300 on alkaline water for his whole diet. I'm like, you could just buy this. And I showed him this new product I sell. It's called Santavia Alkalinized Water Pitcher. It's like a Brita filter, water pitcher filter. You just pour tap water in there, it filters it, and it alkalinizes it. And it keeps the water alkaline as long as it's in contact with the filter. It's $45. I just started selling them at DavePalumbo.com. Once again, I'm not trying to pitch you guys, but a lot of people ask me about alkaline water, and it's expensive if you have to go out and buy it. And those water filters that hook up to your faucet and alkalinize the water, they cost a lot of money. They're like $1,500. So for $45, you can get 2 months of alkalinized water, and every 2 months, every 60 days, you change the $20 filter, and you're good to go. I mean, it's a no-brainer. It's available at DavePalumbo.com. But I do like, once again, I like alkalinized water on empty stomach, not with meals, okay? So in the morning, before bed, during the day when you're sitting around, or maybe in the gym, that's the best time to consume alkalinized water.
Wolf of Essex, if I'm running a cycle with testosterone as my base and another anabolic paired with it, do you think it would be more beneficial for minimum side effects and to keep progress going to have the secondary anabolic consistent throughout, or switched very few weeks?
I like to switch the anabolic every 6 to 8 weeks. So test is always kind of like a standard. It doesn't really matter which ester you use because they're all the same in terms of testosterone being testosterone. And then I use, I'll switch the anabolic. In the off season, I'll go from EQ to DECA to Trenbolone, usually every 6 to 8 weeks. Pre-contest, I may start with EQ. I might switch to Masteron and Winstrol or Trenbolone, something like that. And I find that works best.
Let's go to Nico Agelic. I hate to show much. All right, there's something about Phil Heath. I've been getting routine blood work done every 3 months, and the last two I've gotten have shown elevated progesterone levels. What can I do or take to bring them to normal range?
I think a lot of people confuse progesterone with prolactin. Progesterone being high is usually not something that, does anything in the body. However, when you take progesterone-derived drugs, like the 19-nortestosterone drugs, like DECA, Trenbolone, for some reason these drugs elevate prolactin levels. Now, in some people it's not that high and it doesn't really affect anything negatively, but in some people it does. When prolactin levels are high, usually you have problems getting erections, sex drive could be affected a little bit, and it bothers people. That's why you get people who say DECA causes sexual performance issues. Some people feel it from Trenbolone, although I always felt the opposite from Trenbolone. So high progesterone is not really the problem. It's high prolactin. So when you get blood work tested, you want to test testosterone, estrogen, DHT, prolactin, much more important.
Let's go to Daniel Jones. Dave, I had gyno surgery in 2011, but it seems to have grown back. My surgeon at the hospital told me that it was fatty tissue. What do you think?
The problem with gynecomastia surgery, and Romano and I did a whole show, Iron Rage, on this last week, is that a lot of these surgeons don't know to take the whole gland out, or they don't know how to take the whole gland out. Now, Dr. Blau is a very personal friend of mine. He's done like thousands and thousands of bodybuilders' gynecomastia surgeries up in White Plains, New York. He understands that the gland needs to be completely removed, because if there's a small piece left, it will grow back, okay, in response to higher estrogen levels in the body, which happens when you take anabolics. So it's important that you pick your surgeon wisely. If you go to Dr. Blau, even if you have to fly in there and stay in a hotel for a night or two, it will save you money in the long run if you get a surgery that needs to be redone. Likewise, usually Dr. Blau is pretty cool with reducing the price, especially if you mention my name, enough so that you can make up for the loss of whatever it would cost you to fly out there and stay in a hotel. So don't skimp on the gyno surgery. It's very important that you have someone who's experienced with doing bodybuilders, not just experienced with gyno surgery, with doing bodybuilders, because the surgery idea is completely different. With a regular person, you can leave some of the gland in there to contour the chest. With a bodybuilder, you cannot.
Paul P. wants to know when Localized is going to be back in stock.
That's the $100,000 question. I want to kill my manufacturer, to be honest with you. It's really upsetting that it's been taking this long. There was an ingredient that I'm like a nutcase when it comes to certain ingredients that have to be exactly what I want. And they were having trouble sourcing one of them. And then they took forever. And then there was a label change that needed to be done because of the certain ester I wanted of something. And when all is said and done, we still don't have the product. So from what I'm promised, next month, in early July, we should have it, God willing.
Nick Miller, how can antidepressants such as Zoloft and bipolar medication like Seroquel have any effect on my mind or physical ability? I just started taking them in April, as well as 500 mg weekly of Test E.
Well, I mean, one doesn't really counteract the other. I mean, testosterone, does what it does. It builds, repairs muscle. It might make you a little more aggressive. The Seroquel and those other, drugs are supposedly for your mood disorders, or whatever they happen to be, whether they be bipolar or schizophrenia or whatever, and depression, whatever they're giving them to you for. So, one shouldn't preclude the other. The problem with some of these drugs like Seroquel is a lot of people notice they get fat on the drugs because they happen to be negative partitioning agents, meaning that they tell the body to store body fat. A lot of people notice that. My cousin who's on Seroquel on and off, they're always redosing him. Whenever he takes it, he always gains weight from it. So you got to be aware of that side effect.
So we get a lot of questions on acne. I think we're just going to name this episode something about acne and bodybuilding. Yeah. But this question is from Soltona Pista. I'm running my second cycle now, 750 sus, 600 deca, 600 bold, but I'm getting covered by pimples. I mean, seriously, man, my friends are calling me acne man, and my girls, all right, give me crap every time she sees me. Been taking anastrozole from day one, starting at 0.5 mg EOD, and I'm now up to 1 mg a day. And in all caps, big acne situation here. Before I had none. Please help.
Well, what he's going to notice is that his acne probably got worse as he upped the dose of anastrozole or Arimidex, because that's an estrogen inhibitor. It doesn't inhibit DHT. Matter of fact, when you block the conversion of testosterone into estrogen, you actually increase the rate with which testosterone converts to DHT, because now there's more available to convert. So a lot of guys, when they take anastrozole or Arimidex, they will break out more. And I'm sure this is what he's experiencing right now. Now, if you're not prone to breaking out, you probably won't even notice a difference. But if you got, I was one of those guys that was prone to it. When I would take Arimidex, man, would I break out terribly, even worse. And the only thing, believe it or not, that really helped was taking Augmentin, which is an antibiotic, 1,000 milligrams a day. That would clean my skin up because it would kill the bacteria on my skin. But it's not something you want to stay on all the time, because obviously it will kill the good bacteria in your colon long term. The only other thing I could suggest is you could try Accutane for a 5-month course. See if that cures, or dries up your acne. If that doesn't work, the easiest thing the first thing I tell people to do, and unfortunately I'm going to give advice and then people are not going to even have it available, is take Testolize, believe it or not, when it comes out again. Because Testolize will lower DHT, but it won't eliminate it. So it kind of just blunts production of it. And probably 80% of the people who come to me and I tell them to take that, they tell me it solves their acne problems. In about 10 or 15% of the people, they tell me it cut it back a little bit, but they're still breaking out. Those people I usually try Augmentin, try to cure their skin, and then see if that does it. Some people it does, some people it comes back. Those people have to do Accutane, or something to that degree. Now you could take finasteride, which is a DHT blocker, but that's a little extreme. That's something you need to take continuously for the rest of your life. That it's usually used for hair problems or prostate problems. I wouldn't take finasteride if you don't really need it, though.
Saw a question here. Curly Muscle. How do you balance carb loading with digestion for show day? Everyone wants maximum muscle fullness, but nobody wants to feel like they need to crap when they're up there. Makes you look bloated, and posing is more difficult.
Yeah, well, I mean, you want to make sure you're taking a fiber supplement your whole diet. I have guys on on Fiberlize the entire diet, and then usually the day before the show, I have them instead of doing it twice a day, I have them do it 3 times a day to make sure that they're pushing all that food and waste through their intestinal tract. Because a lot of times when you carb up, you get constipated. Also, another thing, a lot of guys get indigestion when they're carbing up, and for those people, I usually recommend taking a tablespoon of Bragg's apple cider vinegar in about 6 or 8 ounces of water with your meals, and that kind of can curtail, or even in between your meals, that will get rid of that indigestion a little bit. But let's face it, when you're eating a lot of carbs, your stomach's going to fill up a lot more than when you're eating low carbs. The key, and at least in my mind, is that I keep guys on high protein and moderate fat while I'm carbing them up. If you take the fat out or you lower your protein, now your calories are lower. You have to give the person a lot more carbohydrates than they would normally need if you kept them on high protein and moderate fat. So by me feeding them less carbs, but still having that fat and protein around to keep them full also, they can achieve the level of fullness that they're looking for without eating an exorbitant amount of carbohydrates that's going to bloat their stomach out.
Boy from Paris, 133. Did you say something, Dave?
Nope. Just took a sip of coffee. That's it.
Maybe it was a ghost. Boy from Paris, do you believe you should always keep a certain androgen to estrogen ratio when on cycle, or do you think that's BS?
It's BS. You want your estrogen in the normal range. It doesn't have to be normal high. It can be normal low. But if you're too low, obviously, your androgen receptors will not be receptive. But having super high estrogen is not going to make you respond better. So you just need them to be normal, your estrogen levels. You don't need to be super high or super low.
Interesting one here from Blizzy Nizzy. I smoke cigarettes regularly, a pack a day. How bad is that for my gains? People say that it really puts me back, but does it really affect my growth that much?
Look, it's impossible to quantify what smoking cigarettes will do for you in terms of not allowing you to get lean or not allowing you to put muscle on. It might not be quantifiable, but as my dad told me as a kid, real athletes don't smoke and drink because that's only inhibiting their body's ability to recover and to be better athletes. So obviously smoking is terrible for you because you can't breathe as well. Also, nicotine constricts the blood vessels, not good for the kidney tubules who are trying to be dilated so they can filter the blood better. So smoking and alcohol consumption, we know have negative health ramifications. They're well documented throughout the literature. A lot of deaths caused by them per year. So thinking that you can smoke and still make muscle gains and be the best athlete you can be is foolish.
Interesting one here from Bruno Carb 82. Dave, do chicken shakes cooked blended in water gets absorbed the same as eating? In a thick shake, I can take like 12 ounces of chicken in 10 seconds rather than 20 minutes of eating.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're basically just doing the job that your stomach normally does, which churns up the food and turns it into what we call chyme. Chyme is is almost like what your chicken looks like after it comes out of the blender. So you're saving some digestion going on there, and you're making it easier for your body to absorb that chicken. What probably will happen as soon as you drink that chicken shake, it'll go into your stomach and go right into your intestinal tract because it's already broken down, and physically broken down at least. So yeah, it can't hurt. I mean, you should be able to absorb the food just as easily, maybe more easily.
Can't remember who asked this question. I saw it earlier, but the best workout, Dave, to grow width in your back.
Everyone always says pull downs are probably the best, for width. And a lot of people think it's wide grip pull downs will build better grip. But Dorian Yates said it best. Where are you strongest in your back pulling movements? You're strongest when your arms are about shoulder width apart. So I was always a big believer of just going a little wider than shoulder width when I do pull downs or pull ups for that matter. And what you'll find is you're stronger, and where you're stronger, you'll put more muscle on. So the width of your hand grip is not going to necessarily make your lats stick out more. It's how much weight you're contracting on those lats with in good form.
We brought up the Rich Piana interview, the live exclusive one-on-one interview, which right now is available on rxmuscle.com and the YouTube channel. One of the things we've been bandied about in our comment section was the usage of PMMA. Question from Eric H. Your opinion of PMMA versus SEO?
Well, SEO is the site injection oils. PMMA, I don't really have that much experience with it. Obviously, Rich's physique has been enhanced by it. He says it's only his arm. I don't know if that's the truth or not. His ex would beg to differ. But he had a torn bicep, and I guess he got it injected in there to fill in the bicep. And it looks okay, but Rich is not competing on a stage. When you get super ripped and lean and get down to that, something like this PMMA would probably look fake on stage because your arms are just not going to look real. And plus, they always look contracted. That's the problem. So whereas a site injection oil like Chris Clark Synthesize or Painless Pumps, two products I sell at DavePaloma.com, those products look natural if you put them in deep enough and you do use the right protocol, something of which I have no problem sending out to people if they shoot me an email. But it's an oil. It gets absorbed, it gets broken down, it doesn't stay in the muscle permanently like this other stuff does. And who knows, anything that stays in your body permanently can always elicit an autoimmune response. So I get nervous about that. I would not personally experiment with that. I think it would be a disaster for a bodybuilder who's getting on stage to use this stuff. If you do want to enhance calves, arms, little delts a little bit, maybe with pecs, use a good quality site injection oil. And look, I hate to say this because it sounds very self-serving because I sell these two. The only two products that are on the market that have any real science behind them are Chris Clark's Synthesize and the Painless Pump product.
Last question of the day from I Am Munaredo. T-Nation recently wrote an article saying to inject test sub-Q, not intramuscular, citing research which explained you will have more stable blood and prolonged release of the injected compound. What are your thoughts on this?
Here's the problem. If you injected it once every 2 weeks, that would probably be the truth because the stuff would sit under your skin longer and it would release slowly into the bloodstream. Most people are taking testosterone. They want it in their blood as quickly as possible because they're taking it every other day anyway. So intramuscular is the route you should be doing this stuff. Under the skin, it gets irritated, it gets red, it doesn't look good, it hurts a little bit. That's not what we want. We want this stuff getting in on a regular, predictable rate every single shot. So if you're taking 1,000 milligrams a week and you're doing 250 milligrams every other day, I mean, you don't need to put it under the skin. Put it right into the muscle, and that's where it's going to get absorbed. Everyone's always trying to recreate the wheel. I don't know why. Some people ask me, what about if I inject GH intravenously because it'll get into the bloodstream faster? I'm like, listen, if the people who create and synthesize GH and sell the stuff thought that the better route of absorption was IV, they would put it on the pamphlet that comes with it. The pamphlet says nothing about IV. It only says subcutaneous and intramuscular. So that's the only two routes you should consider using. Capiche?
I keep hearing this echo. Did you say something again?
I said capiche. Capiche. I was trying to be Italian.
That is going to do it for this episode of As Dave, brought to you by Species Nutrition. Reminder, the one-on-one exclusive interview in studio with Rich Piana available right now on rxmuscle.com and the RX Muscle YouTube channel. For Dave Palumbo, our producer Johnny Styles, I'm Sadiq Faruqi. We'll see you next time.